All right, good afternoon. We'll go on and get this started real fast. We've got a great program for you today. Real fast, we'll take care of some of the agenda items that we have. I think everybody got a copy of the minutes. There's some available up here, and I would entertain a motion to accept those. They didn't get copies.
Sorry.
And we can come back to that. Real fast, we could go on and do the introduction of guests. I think we have a few guests here. Jerry, did you have some?
Yes, I'm Jerry Berthold, two guests with Lucent Window Door Company. First is Tom Bergman, he's the CEO and president, and with him is Fred Gack, who's vice president of operations, so please welcome them. Tom, say a little bit.
I don't know where to stand back there for anybody, but first of all, I would like to thank St. Jen for giving us the opportunity to be part of the community. I don't know how many of you actually read the article in the paper, but it is what it is. The quotes in there from myself. This is a personal passion of mine. What wasn't in the paper, I actually retired in 2007, and these guys found me to consider the venture an opportunity. And I'll never forget the first time that I walked into the admin offices and out in the plant. And it looked like everyone went to lunch and never came back.
Some of them full time.
Everyone familiar with the Bill Best plant in town? Okay, that was idle for 2 years. The bank foreclosed on the facility. What I understand is on Wednesday, I think at noon, and foreclosure because of, I'll just say, management at that time weren't keeping their eye on the ball the way they should have. Won't say anymore. But I guess when all the people were let go, there were personal articles still in cubicles. There were McDonald's cups half full of pop. I actually saw a pair of tennis shoes out on one of the production lines, clipboard above. I guess the gentleman had an extra pair of shoes. And then that same afternoon, I believe, I was at the Huddle House. And it was after we had one of our informal meetings. I was sitting there by myself. And I saw this young man walk in with a lime green shirt, had Bill Best, 2 little kids in tow. When I got back to St. Albans, where my wife and I reside, I told her we're going to invest. And this is the next 8 to 9 years of my life. So I say thank you, and I'm glad to be part of the family.
If you guys had an opportunity to look over the minutes. Entertain a motion to accept. Okay, Mark and Bob. All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries. A couple chamber items of business real fast. Just a reminder, our second annual golf tournament will be coming up. There's flyers on all of the tables there in front of you. If you need some more, there's some up here. It's going to be October 4th this year. It'll be an afternoon tournament. It's a Friday tournament this year, which is different than last year. We did a Saturday last year, so we're hoping for a great turnout. Last year was very successful, and we're hoping to improve on that this year. So if you didn't get a team in last year and want one this year, definitely let us know. If you had a team in there last year, look for a second team to put in for this year. So, secondly, the Challenger Field of Dreams is having a fundraiser this coming Saturday, though, the 7th. Thank you. Do we have any other announcements?
And that's going to be on Thursday, September 19th. Our professor of art at MAC took a group of students and community members to Italy over the summer, and he's going to be giving a talk on that trip. Interestingly, there were 2 members of the St. John community of the St. Genevieve Artists Guild that went along as well. So I believe they're also, going to be doing a show later on, maybe in October, maybe September or October of one of the 4th Friday walks. So it should be an interesting lecture. It's free, so we invite anyone to come out to that. We also have tickets on sale for an October 12th show. We're bringing in the Truman a cappella group from Truman State University. There are 3 Farmington boys that are members of that group. It's an a cappella group similar to, if anybody watches the Sing Off on TV, it's a pretty popular show. They do a cappella singing and then choreography too. It's a really, really fun show. We sold that show out last year at Long Hall in Farmington, so we moved that one to MAC as well, and we'll be able to seat 100 extra people. So tickets for that show are $10 for adults and $5 for students, and they're on sale now at the MAC bookstore. And then one other thing, we do have 5 ticketed shows through the year, and I'll be coming here to let you know about all of those, but we are selling season tickets right now, and they're $50 a ticket, and then we'll get you into all of those 5 shows throughout the year. So starting with Truman in October, and then our last show of the year will be in March. So if you're interested in that, I'll go ahead and forward Dina the form when I get back to the office today. But I do have forms here today, so you can see me, and I'll be happy to get them. Thank you.
Great. We'll go ahead with our program. Today we have Don Calicat, who is the Vice President of Business Development for Mercy Hospital Jefferson. So give him a big hand.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Don Calicat, and was mentioned I do business development for Mercy. We're a large organization, and I've been very involved in the fact that Jefferson Health System joined Mercy officially on February the 1st, and I also do work not only in eastern Missouri but in other states where Mercy operates. So my current work is primarily business development and strategic planning. That's how I generally characterize it. I'm not a clinical person. I thought I'd take a few moments today to tell you about Mercy and who we are, and then talk a bit about what we think are really important core strategies, sort of looking to the future of healthcare delivery, and then wrap up with the commitments we essentially made, Mercy made, along with the former board of the Jefferson Health System when it was decided that Jefferson would join Mercy. I suspect you all know Linda Bossler and Rick Fisher. They're part of the marketing and PR group, if you will, at Mercy Hospital Jefferson, so they can answer all the tough questions. You've seen this billboard. In fact, I just noticed today there's one right here on Highway 32, right off Interstate 55. It's a meaningful statement. Jefferson Health System, which sort of the key business unit for the health system was, or health services rather, was the hospital. They're strong. It's a vibrant hospital. They weren't in trouble. They didn't have to necessarily sell the hospital or do something differently. Their board decided somewhere along the way that as they looked at the future of healthcare, there were going to be certain things that needed to be accomplished in making sure that healthcare services were available. They thought they could do that better as being part of a larger system rather than do it as an independent hospital. And that's an item on the minds of a lot of independent hospitals, big and small. Whether you call it Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, in my mind, the reality is healthcare is really expensive. The country spends a lot of money on it that can't continue. So whether it's by regulation or the economy, I think healthcare is going to change. And so Mercy's thinking is there ought to be sort of an integrated and organized approach to that probably requires some degree of scale to make it happen. And I know that was part of the thought process of the board of Jefferson Health System when they decided to look for a larger health system to partner with. Mercy's stronger in that we then can reach out to patients, many of whom we've been serving for many years, in a better way because Jefferson is now part of Mercy. And Jefferson Regional Medical Center, and we now call it Mercy Hospital Jefferson, we have intentions to expand beyond the walls of Festus and Crystal City in terms of physician practices and ambulatory services. That development and the sort of the connection and the continued development of services at the hospital, at Mercy Hospital Jefferson, will make it much easier and better for us, we think, long-term to serve patients where they want to be served in a clinically effective way. So by putting Mercy and Jefferson together, that's what that means. We think both we, Mercy, and the former Jefferson Health System will be stronger because we're part of a bigger whole. Many people know Mercy because of our hospital on Dallas Road in Freeport. Some people affectionately still call us the baby factory. A lot of kids were born there. A lot of people access health care there. But Mercy really is a bigger system. We went to this master brand, Mercy, moved away from St. John's Mercy Medical Centers on nomenclature about 2 years ago, really to reflect the fact that we're a larger organization and we are moving more and more to consolidate clinical and business operations in a way that we can sort of standardize certain things that are clinically effective. We actually operate in 7 states. We have hospitals and physician offices and outpatient buildings or ambulatory buildings in 4 of those states. So as you can see, we have a pretty significant presence in Missouri along Interstate 44. We have a hospital in Washington, Missouri, now in Festus, Crystal City, of course. We have a very large hospital in Springfield. The hospital in Joplin that was destroyed by the tornadoes is being rebuilt. That's a Mercy hospital. Yeah, we have actually a sizable hospital in Lebanon, Missouri, and smaller hospitals in Avon and a few other communities. But we also have hospitals and physician practices in Arkansas and Oklahoma, and then we have sort of a smallish presence in southeast Kansas. In these other 3 states, in Laredo, Texas, New Orleans, and in the state of Mississippi, we have very targeted health ministries. In Mississippi, we have several attorneys and staffers working in office to advocate for improved healthcare access for the poor. That's funded by Mercy. In New Orleans, we have a very, very large psychiatric outpatient behavioral health counseling service that we had started many years ago. That grew because of Hurricane Katrina, and it grew even more after the BP oil spill. And in Laredo, Texas, we fund, Mercy operates, I should say, and funds through a charitable foundation, a health clinic and a domestic abuse shelter for essentially uninsured people, largely an immigrant population. We have 32 hospitals, and you can see the numbers there. We have about 38,000 co-workers across the entire system. In Missouri, we have, I believe it's 22,000 employees in all of our various operations. Our corporate headquarters, we call it the ministry office, is located on Interstate 64 in West St. Louis County. In St. Louis, or across all of Mercy, we touch about 3 million people, unique people, individual persons every year. Interesting to note that although many of us connect with healthcare through a hospital, and you all may think of Mercy as a hospital company or hospital organization, only 5% of the time do we see people in the hospital. Those other 95% of those 3 million people are seen in a lab or a mammography center or urgent care center or doctor's office. So we've become acutely aware of the importance of connecting with people going forward in the outpatient world, in addition to making sure that what happens inside the hospital walls is clinically effective and satisfactory to people too. Mercy East Communities is our nomenclature for the East region. So as I mentioned, we serve in 21 counties. We have the hospitals I've already mentioned. The 4th hospital listed here is a rehab hospital in West St. Louis County. I mentioned we have 22,000 co-workers in the state of Missouri. About half of those are here in the eastern part of the area. We provided a little over $55 million now in uncompensated care, either free care or charity care or services that people didn't pay for. And our total economic impact in eastern Missouri is a little over $2 billion. So we're a pretty big organization, and that's kind of by the numbers. I've highlighted on that the fact that we're other than a hospital company. We operate hospitals, but we have a number of outpatient centers and a number of physician practices that we own, and they're organized in a group called Mercy Clinic. That's not a name you'd recognize here in this community because we don't have any physicians here in this community at this point at least. But as we're doing our planning and implementation at Mercy Hospital Jefferson, some of the physicians who've been employed in the past by Jefferson will roll into this group called Mercy Clinic, and we intend to grow that both in terms of primary care doctors and specialists. Why? Because as I said before, we think the future of healthcare depends a great deal on better organizing how care is delivered. We want physicians to be in leadership roles to help us decide how medical care ought to be offered, and we want them to have authority in making those decisions. And we also want the hospital administrator types and physicians at the table together planning care. We think that we'll get a better result, and patients will get more effective care. And we think that's the only way we can deal with sort of the economic pressures on spending in healthcare that we all realize. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our foundation, because it's really an important element of how our coworkers think about their work at Mercy. We really grew as a health system because of a woman named Catherine McCauley, who was born in Dublin in the late 1700s. Short story is that she was in a poor family. Her parents died. She was befriended, taken in by a wealthy family in Dublin in her mid-40s. When they passed away, they left their $1 million endowment to her. She had always been concerned about poor women and children. So she decided to put that $1 million into what I guess today we would call a charitable foundation. I don't know that she did that technically. But she created a number of ways to reach out to poor women and kids in Dublin when it wasn't fashionable to do that. She developed the House of Mercy. She had a particular interest in education, so that's really how she started her service to the poor. And eventually that grew to other continents, came to the United States, I want to say in the 1850 or thereabouts, came to the St. Louis area a little over 100 years ago. As an educational ministry, but today there's Sisters of Mercy sprinkled all over the world in many, many continents. There are a number of ministries the sisters themselves practice in terms of education. There's a group in Africa that's very concerned about slavery and involved in trying to fix that. Healthcare is how we here in St. Louis connect with the sisters. Mercy today is no longer sponsored by the Sisters of Mercy. I'm sure you all know the sisters are a Catholic congregation, religious congregation of Catholic women. About 5 or 6 years ago, the sisters themselves said, you know what, we're all getting older, and there aren't as many sisters as there used to be. We think you lay people, we have trained well to accept the foundations and the belief principles of Catherine McCauley. So today Mercy is organized as a nonprofit corporation. We're still sponsored as a Catholic healthcare ministry. I usually say we're sponsored by the Vatican directly. We're considered a private juridic person under Catholic canon law. But I mentioned all I have to say is our foundations were really not about how to provide healthcare in America. Our foundations really are Catherine McCauley's interest in serving, and in her case in serving poor women and children. It grew to become, as we know it, in our 7 states, a health ministry. In other parts of the world, it takes on other flavors, and there are other Mercy Health ministries throughout the United States. We talk with our co-workers and our physicians about the meaning of this mission statement, that foundation really calls us to provide compassionate care to people and to serve them well. And part of our co-worker education and ongoing training beyond the original in-service education deals with the connection of our work day to day in terms of our foundation. What I hear from people when they encounter our hospitals, our physicians, they feel that they are treated like a person, quote. In my mind, that's sort of a pseudonym for our co-workers displaying sort of personal respect and compassion for individual persons when they're not feeling well. And that directly ties back to the mission. What we're looking to do, because we think we need to, is to figure out some way to develop a new model of care and get it right in terms of making sure it's cost effective and acceptable to patients when we provide a new model of care. So I'm going to talk with you just a bit about some of the core strategies we're pursuing that we're pursuing because we want Mercy to have a voice in how healthcare unfolds really nationally in the debate going forward. So I want to touch on, I think it's 6 or 7 items here, and I'll do this very, very quickly. When people experience healthcare, when patients experience healthcare, they experience it in terms of the facility that actually is meaningful to people. They experience it in terms of the providers, whether it's the nurses in the hospital, sometimes it's the dietary worker in the hospital, sometimes it's the receptionist at the doctor's office, or the technician in the x-ray room or something. So the people are really important parts of how we all experience healthcare. But really important, sort of inside the provision of healthcare, is the care processes. And that ties back to what I said before about how we think it's really important that as hospital leaders organize and think about healthcare, physicians got to be at the table to help us design it, and that sometimes hasn't been the case in the past. So our view of the Mercy experience is to try to bundle together our thinking about the care processes, the approach, our people, our doctors and our nurses and our other caregivers and our back office workers, the people on the phone answering questions about that. Our people need to respond properly to patients or to general inquiries. And then the physical aspects are important too. This is a design of a new building we opened in St. Charles County about a year ago that was based on extensive consumer research that we did. And it's based on a set of architectural principles, both the outside of the building and the interior design that addresses what we heard from the voice of the customers. Because we do think when people aren't feeling well, they ought to be in a place that's comfortable for them. So tying together this experience is one of our core strategies, and it's all those elements that I mentioned. We had some focus groups recently that I was part of. This happened to be a series of groups with moms. These were all mothers who had children at home, and we talked about healthcare needs in their area. Their absolute number one healthcare need was stated this. They said, we'd like to be able to see the doctor in the evening on weekends. And that's even more important if it's a need for our children. Sort of when I think about healthcare needs, I think about curing diabetes or have a heart condition or whatever. But it was expressed by these moms in these focus groups differently. They said, you know what, we're busy. Whether we're married or not, and whether we have children or not, we're busy. And we're working, and we got a busy life. So if we could go see the doctor on a Saturday afternoon or at 7 o'clock in the evening, that would be really great. And then that carries over into sort of geographic access. So if the time of day for access is a concern, is my doctor close to home also a concern? And so this idea of access has become a really important part of how we think about strategically making our level of services and our kind of services available to people. So I'll mention a little bit later as we're developing our strategic plans for Mercy Hospital Jefferson, we are thinking about what other geographic areas should we be serving in terms of outpatient services that make it easy for people to access care on a regular basis. I've already talked a bit about physicians. We now have 570 physicians, primary care doctors and specialists here in eastern Missouri. They're part of this group called Mercy Clinic. A number of those physicians have leadership positions in our organization. Dr. Joe Kahn, who's a pediatrician by training, is the chairman of our board of directors here in the eastern region. He heads up our children's hospital as well. Of course, our physician group is led entirely by a board of directors of all of whom are physicians. All of our various boards of directors, and we've got plenty of them, include Sisters of Mercy, physicians, and business people representing the community. So it's very important for physicians to feel and to actually be involved in organizing and structuring healthcare going forward. I guess none of us would be surprised to think that a core strategy for Mercy is clinical excellence. But it is a core strategy, and we keep that kind of front and center. We want to benchmark ourselves against best practices nationally. We're proud of the fact that the U.S. News ranked Mercy Hospital St. Louis recently. It's to some degree it's a beauty contest, but to some degree, U.S. News does a pretty decent job about evaluating hospitals in comparison to best practices. So we hold ourselves accountable to making sure that we push ourselves to clinical excellence in terms of certain quality benchmarks and standards that we look at regularly. And the standards, of course, that Medicare and CMS are going to hold all hospitals and physician groups accountable for going forward. We have a comprehensive medical record now across our entire organization. The backbone for it, or the manufacturer for the system, is called Epic. I think most people would agree it's the best backbone, if you will, or administrative structure for an electronic record for a comprehensive record. So if a patient is seen in one of our doctor's offices, in our outpatient center, in the emergency room, getting an x-ray, and wherever, Ava, Missouri, or is hospitalized, all of that information goes into one electronic record. So any doctor that I see has access to any health experience that I've had within a Mercy facility, that is. And it doesn't have to duplicate tests, and has kind of ready knowledge of my health status. One of the aspects that's pretty neat about it is this thing called My Mercy. Individual patients can use My Mercy, that's the patient portal, to contact their physician, to have an email interchange about a condition, to request a prescription renewal, to make an appointment, and so forth. I recently saw a spike in my blood pressure. So I shot an email to my doctor. I said, do I need to come in for this or not? And she wrote back and she said, well, here's what you've been running. Keep an eye on it and let me know how you're feeling in a couple of weeks. I didn't get charged for that. I didn't have to go make an appointment for that. I didn't have to take time to go do that. So it's a pretty neat tool that is part of our integrated health record. And of course, we're pursuing other technology improvements, like most hospitals are today, to advance how healthcare is delivered. As we've done community input sessions in various communities around Mercy, and we've held several hundred of them by now. Oftentimes people say, well, I'd like to have a blank in my community. I'm thinking about one experience that one of our leaders talked about is in Carthage, Missouri. A mom said she'd like to have a pediatric cardiologist available in her community because her child had a cardiac problem. And our senior executive would say, well, clearly there's a desire for us to do certain things in healthcare. In that case, there's a desire to get a pediatric cardiologist to Carthage. Is it feasible? Yeah, it probably is. There aren't many pediatric cardiologists coming out of training, but you could probably pay someone enough money to practice in Carthage, at least for a little while. But is it viable long term? And is it something that's sustainable and that makes any sense? And the answer to that is no. Why? Because in a smaller community where there's not a lot of need for kind of a niche service like that, the physician wouldn't remain interested very long, or wouldn't keep his or her skills sharp. Telemedicine is a way to solve that, and we, Mercy, have invested a lot of money in more than 20 different sort of projects we're doing right now to apply the internet, really, in the advances in technology to the provision of medical care. The thing that's kind of has the most whiz-bang to it is what we call the EICU. Based in our hospital in St. Louis, we have critical care nurses and critical care doctors monitoring the condition of patients in, I believe it's 5 states now, in 14 or 15 hospitals now, monitoring over 430 beds. These are patients who are in intensive care units and in other specialty units and so forth. They're an extra set of eyes and ears, particularly important in those hospitals that can't afford highly trained critical care physicians or critical care nurses. They don't replace the care given by the doctor in the local community or by the nurse bedside, but they bring an extra set of expertise that in fact helps reduce costs, and we found that to be the case in our own hospital in Washington, Missouri. We now have in Washington, Missouri, a critical care doctor in the hospital on the day shift. I guess that's probably a 10-hour day. But at nighttime, the nurses there are backed up by this telemedicine SafeWatch program that we have in St. Louis. And that's a much more cost-effective solution because of the telemedicine application than would otherwise be possible. So those are, finally, I already talked about this, but let me just mention again, we think as a strategic move for us, it is important to listen to you all, to hear from communities, from people, what they need and want in healthcare. So when we talk about engaged communities, we're largely talking about having some way on a regular basis that we do reach out either in focus groups or large community forums or online surveys. We have patient advisor groups in some of our facilities to get input so we can tweak and change our care processes as we go along. So that's a summary of the major strategies that Mercy's focused on to, quote, get healthcare right in the future. We made some commitments between Mercy and the Jefferson Health System Board. And honestly, I think I would say that these were driven by the Jefferson Health System Board. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about now were things that the former board there said, here's why we're looking for a larger health system as a partner. And so we said, okay, Mercy commits to doing the following, and this was satisfactory to them. The biggest thing, I think, is to make sure that, well, it's not the biggest thing, it's one of the several big things, to make sure that we, Mercy, don't try to get patients to go to St. Louis for health care. That's how it kind of played out. There was some suspicion, I think, when Mercy had an interest in Jefferson Regional Medical Center that was for the purpose of getting patients to come to the hospital in Creve Coeur. Actually, it's just the opposite. What I said to you earlier was true. We believe in the importance of having ready access to health care. Not only hospital care, physician care and other ambulatory service. We think it's really important. And so we committed to continue to develop Mercy Hospital Jefferson as a referral center of its own. The word hub hospital is actually one of the terminology we use in our discussions over the last 10 months or so, to say we want to continue to build upon what's already been built at Jefferson Regional, make it stronger and bigger and broader. Jefferson has a pretty rich and deep cardiac program, you probably know. While many people don't use bariatric surgery, it's a certified bariatric surgery center of excellence. There are a number of specialty services inside of Mercy Hospital Jefferson that have been developed over the years. So those are going to stay, and we Mercy have committed to continue to build upon them and try to make sure that people have excellent health care, convenient, who want to use it. Mercy Hospital Jefferson serves people really from 3.5 counties, maybe I should say. Southern Jefferson County, St. Genevieve, St. Francis, and Washington County. And it serves a lot of people from all of those counties. And so it's important for all of those people to continue to be able to access care at Jefferson when they need it. There is a local board that will govern operations of what Mercy does here in the southern region. That's in place now. It includes 5 members of the former Jefferson Health System Board, so there's some connectivity to the past. One of the former members, a fellow named Bill McKenna, you may know, was chairing the Jefferson Board. He's now on Mercy's regional board. So we try to connect through our governing bodies through sort of these overlapping memberships. And finally, you may have read in the paper that there is a new community foundation, charitable foundation that was formed as a result of the sale of Jefferson Health System. It's called Jefferson Memorial Community Foundation. That's not controlled by Mercy. We have 1 seat on, I believe it's an 8-member board, but it's an independent charitable foundation. We, Mercy, have to report on our commitments to that foundation board from time to time. So that was a way to structure in some accountability for Mercy back to the community to say we're going to live up to what we promised to do. So that's some of the structural stuff. We've been working on our strategic plan. We call it a community master plan. We launched that in the spring with community input sessions in Festus, Crystal City, Hillsborough, and Farmington. We didn't have one in St. John. We thought about it, just the timing didn't work out. I would guess we're going to do that. We're not going to do it tomorrow or anything, but maybe yet this fall. But we're interested, as I said earlier, in hearing what the voice of the customer is and what people think healthcare needs are. What we heard in those 3 roundtables was kind of a unanimous voice that the greatest need on the healthcare side in this region are mental health services. And kind of right behind that are transportation services. And I know there's a transportation, CMO, I want to say, in this area, in Jeffco. In Mercy Hospital, Jefferson has its own transportation service. And we have behavioral health services too. But those are the 2 items that really bubbled up in all 3 of the community input sessions as really top healthcare priorities. There was some other stuff too. But we're working on those now and including the comments from the community in our community master plan, which should be advanced to our boards of directors in October. Part of that community master plan is a physician manpower plan or physician recruitment plan. This was, it's kind of an issue for any hospital, big or small, big community or small community, doesn't make any difference. It really is true that in many physician specialties, there's a shortage. And, most of the analysts, or many at least, are predicting there'll be a physician shortage in future years. So that's a particularly important thing. And we're looking at both how can we add primary care physicians in other communities and in Festus Crystal City, along with specialists to support services there. And I've already talked a bit about expanding our footprint by expanding our outpatient services and physician offices in other parts of the area. We'll build a new patient tower. We're expecting to have that open within, I guess it'll be 4.5 years from now, so we can get the hospital to 100% private rooms. And we'll certainly maintain all the services that we have. They're called out here as core services. But again, this is all back to that point of making sure we develop services locally and make it easy for people to access care locally. I already talked about Mercy's commitment to serve the underserved. We will have a certain level of charity care that we provide. That's an important, engagement with the community is an important part of our business planning and our sort of our foundational work. I've already talked a bit about information technology investments. And then while we're a Catholic system, we're not looking to exclude people or ministers of other faiths. So we'll certainly have multi-denominational pastors, ministers involved in our hospital work. So that's kind of a quick run through. I know we're running short on time, but I'm happy to answer a question or two if you all have interest in time. Yes, sir.
Early on, you made a distinction between charitable care and care for which nobody pays.
Bad debt.
What's the difference?
Bad debt is a latter, yeah. So sometimes patients come in and say, I don't have any insurance, I don't have any money, and we tie our charity policy to the federal poverty level. So we might ask people for some evidence of what their income or their assets are, but we tie it back to that. Sometimes people just don't pay the bills that we thought they could pay. Yes, ma'am?
Wondering what your thoughts were on Medicaid expansion and the Affordable Care Act is going to end a lot of the federal subsidies for that disproportionate care or indigent care hospitals in January. And
We like it if, we Mercy would like it if the Missouri legislature would expand the Medicaid program. If we would expand Medicaid coverage. We supported that. We advocated for broader coverage. The thought process around the Affordable Care Act is with more people having health coverage, that's going to offset the reductions in DISH and whatever. We don't think it will. So we think we're going to have to tighten our belts like the rest of the world does. And we think there's going to be less revenues coming to hospitals and physicians for that matter, frankly. Even if the goals for health coverage, health coverage for all are achieved. So we don't think there's going to be an offset to that. I do think there'll be continued investment in the federally qualified health center program. Does Great Minds serve this area country? Great Minds.
Great minds.
Yeah. And so Great Minds is one of those country up in Jefferson County, and I think over in Washington County in the future. That's part of they are federally qualified health centers. I think there'll be continued funding there, but it's still not going to relieve the burden or the financial pressure, maybe I should say, on hospitals and on physician practices. But boy, I don't know what your crystal ball says. Who knows what the Missouri legislature will do this next session in terms of Medicaid expansion. And I just got to say this. I know, I guess my disclaimer will be that I'm pretty conservative economically in terms of spending money. But it's not true that everybody in America has access to health care. People showing up in the emergency room because they have an episode is not ready access to health care. It's not good for their health. People should have a way to go see a provider, usually a physician, with some regularity, so they have this thing called a medical home. And we, of course, would say it's not right to dump, to assume that hospitals will be able to afford to continue to provide free care in the emergency room because there's no other venue. Hospitals do it because that's what we do. We provide care for people when they show up, but economically it's not right. Anything else? Well, thank you. I appreciate the time to be here today.
All right, thank you. Also, just a reminder, they did provide lunch for us today, so thank you very much for that. And is there anything else that we need to discuss? Motion to adjourn? Bob? Second? Brandon? All right. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for the program.
Hi, thank you for watching Channel 798.
Thank you for watching Channel 7 and 98.
Hi, thank you very much for watching Channel 798.